Hello, and today I'm going to show you a more controlled way on how to use your UVs. So I'm going to start by a simple roof. Let's make just a roof. Right? So there's a roof. Go back into object mode. And I'm going to assign a material. And now I'm going to assign a texture. And this is going to be a shingled roof. And there it is. And if we go to our UV editor, and let me dock it here. Scale a little bit here. All right, so let's take a look at what this looks like. So you'll notice that I have a grid. Let me smooth this a little bit more. So we have this grid right here to basically show us if we have any stretching going on, any funkiness going on here. Here we have all perfect squares, which is nice. But if we take this off and we actually do look at it really closely, we can see our shingles are very huge. Plus, they're also not in the right direction. So we can fix this. And this is what I do. Your method could be completely different, that's okay. But this is basically something I do to help understand UVs a little more. So I can take my entire UV shell, so that's what these are called, UV shells, the whole thing. And I'm going to go to create, click on automatic, and it's going to separate all these shells. And these shells are basically the image representation of your model. Now you can click on the shell on the outside of the face and it'll select it in the UV editor as well. So what I like to do is I like to separate my shells. This one here, this one there. And then what I usually normally do is I will copy and sew, or not copy and sew, but I will move and sew these edges to make one shell. So I'm going to cut and sew, move and sew, and now we have one shell. Now the other ones here, these are the sides, and this here is the complete bottom. But if we zoom in on the sides, we can see that the checker marks are a little off. And if we take away our grid, we can see that it's very, very pixelated. So we're not going to really focus in on these. I just want to demonstrate a simple way to do UVs. But we also know that our UVs are still a bit big, and they are facing the wrong way. So we can fix this by going back to the grid and using these numbers. We can see and depict the right way to actually move them around. So you notice that on the actual model, you can see the numbers and the letters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to hit E for rotate, hold down J to snap, and I'm going to rotate this into a way where it is basically up and down. And what that's going to do is, you can see it right there. So I'm going to, and what that does is that actually rearranges the shell so that way it corresponds with the image that we have. Now we still see that the shells or the images that we have here are still pretty big. Now we could fix that. We could fix this by going into a image editing software like Photoshop, but I use GIMP. GIMP is a free software that is also is supposed to be depicting of Photoshop, but every software has different UIs, so it might not be. You know, it might take a while to learn the interface for it. But anyway, I'm going to select area, select on my shells. I'm going to go to image. I'm going to click on UV snap, and here is the file path that this UV snapshot is going to go. So I named this shingles UV. It's going to my source images folder in my UV project. If we look at the top here, it's basically the same thing we have. So projects UV scenes. The name of the project is UV. That's the file name. The scene name is UVMA. And I'm just going to hit apply and close. And if I go into my files for source images, there's our shingles UV. Now I'm going to go into GIMP, or you could use Photoshop. I'm pretty sure Mike has Photoshop for you guys, but I'm going to go to File in GIMP, Open as a layer, and I'm going to find my file. UV, source images, and I'm going to open the UV PNG file. Using a PNG is going to give you an alpha channel, which basically gives you a transparency in the background. So you can actually kind of see our image, but very, very faintly. But if I add another layer, and then I put this layer above the background layer, then we actually get to see our UVs. So we are now going to put in our shingles texture, and we're going to open that as a layer. And there it is, shingles JPG. Sometimes you'll get this. I just hit keep. And here's our shingles layer. So I'm going to see, is this scale? Okay, so I have my scale tool already, so cancel. Hello. There you go. And we're going to kind of size it up to the image of my top roof. All right. Scale. So we essentially just shrunk our image. So before, our image was the complete size of this. We now shrunk our image to overlap the UV shell that we have to depict for our roof. So once we have that in place, I can click Save As to save the file, which will say that this will be saved as an XCF file. So this file is saved. So I can also come back to this file and readjust this to actually make a bump map. So we're going to we're going to go to File, Export As, and it's still going to use the name shingles UV PNG. But if you do that, it'll override your actual UV map. So what I usually like to do is I like to just take this out, the underscore in the UV, and just put a 1 and hit export. You get export here, hit that. And if we go back into our file structure, we have shingles 1, our PNG file. All right, so now let's minimize this. Let's go back into our material. By the way, we should be naming these. This should be called roof. Wait a second. material. Okay. So now we're going to replace this with our new shingles 1 PNG file. So you notice that the layout is the same, but instead of having the texture completely engulfed in the entire square, we now just have it overlapping the shell that we made for the roof. So let's now click on open. And if we do now look at it, our shingles are now sizable and in the right direction. Now I can show you how to make a bump map. So we can now go back into our program, our software. It could be, you know, your Photoshop. And then we can go, basically you want to make this a grayscale. Color to gray, here we go. Color to gray. All right. Okay. Colors. Gonna do an exposure. I kind of want to guess that way we can have a good line of black and gray. All right, so there we go. Let's do that. All right, so I'm now going to file, export as, and now I'm going to label this bump shingles. I can keep the one in there, it's not going to make a difference, but let's go export. Export. All right, so now we have a bump map for our shingles. And let's go back. Let's remove our editor because we don't really need that anymore. All right, so I'm going to go back onto here and back onto my roof material. And then I'm going to go to geometry, bump mapping, file, click this grayed out and add the bump file. And now it changed and now it changed our image to be more icky. Yeah, like, well, you know, it's a bit more bumped than normal. So we can then, this is going to be a tricky part. It's the roof material. Click on bump mapping, this button here, and then click on this little button here. And here we're going to get a bump depth. And I normally like to go 0.2 or 0.2. Kind of gives it a little bit more of a nice grit to it. All right, so I'm going to add a light. We're going to see how this works, how this looks. So I'm going to go here. And there you go. Don't worry about that. That's basically lighting right there. But we can zoom in. You can see some more deformations on it. It's still a flat surface. But I do hope this helps you.
And like I said, there's more than one way to do this. If you know of a better way and you're more comfortable with it, then by all means, go for it. Anyway, thank you very much.